Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Review your operations, while the National Security Minister is telling INDECOM it is time for changes. Another protest, this time in St. James about poor road conditions. And later in sports, Reggae Boyz hunt winning start to 2021 CONCACAF Gold Cup. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. National Security Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Horace Change is calling for the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, to review its operations. He says INDECOM is not accomplishing what it was created to do.
INDECOM should be focused on the fatal shootings. But once a citizen loses their life as a result of the action of an agent of the state, it is appropriate that an independent body can take a look at it to make sure that it is dealt with appropriately and justice is assured. So that, I think, it should be INDECOM's principal role.
He says fatal shootings at the hands of an agent of the state should be reviewed by an independent body, but he notes that so far, investigations and charges have been carried out by Internal Affairs along with the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, MOCA.
Coming to Inspectorate and MOCA. So INDECOM should focus. That's why, if you look at the record of prosecution is extremely low.
He also pointed to the time it takes INDECOM to complete investigations. Dr. Change is of the view that the internal systems of the force must be strengthened and maintained while external forces deal with cases of combat. The police have detained a man they suspect was involved in last night's shooting of a child on Sunlight Street in the Kingston Western Police Division. A firearm was also seized during the operation. The 7-month-old baby girl is in serious condition in hospital. Now, shortly after 11 o'clock, residents reported hearing explosions in a yard. Moments later, the baby was found with a bullet wound inside her home. It's still not clear what exactly led to the shooting. To some health-related news now, with uncertainty surrounding the vaccine supplies, though there's a call for the government to improve its relations with Cuba to access the Cuban vaccines for COVID-19. Executive member of the Cuban-Jamaican Friendship Association, Dr. Neville Graham, says the rollout of the Cuban vaccines should begin as early as this month.
The Cubans are predicting that they will have a more international rollout at the end of July. At the moment, they have vaccinated 90,000 people with the third dose. And for the first dose, they have vaccinated 2.2 million people. And the cases in Havana have halved in the last month since Cuba has rolled out to the population.
The country recorded 37 new COVID-19 cases on Sunday. The overall case count is now 50,757. This brings the positivity rate to 7.6%. One new death was recorded, pushing the death toll to 1,131. Meanwhile, 92 persons remain in hospital. 10 are critically ill. There are 9,237 active cases. As entertainment events continue to be rolled out across the island, the police have been taking action against those who are breaking the rules. In fact, some party promoters faced the full fury of the law recently after realizing they were still in breach despite having a permit. Now we have more in this report. And we apologize for that story being absent. We'll get back to it a little bit later. Now, protesters blocked the Friendship Road in St. James this morning, rendering it impassable. Residents are upset about poor road conditions. The road, which links Springmount to Montego Bay, was also blocked with debris and boulders. One taxi operator who got trapped in the roadblock says the road has been in a deplorable condition for years.
A couple of years though, the road bad, but them fix part right down there, so. And part, well, we kind of understand they said through the COVID and they spend up money doing other things, so. But they said they plan to start fix it about next week, I understand.
And back now to that earlier story, as entertainment events continue to be rolled out across the island, the police have been taking action against those who are breaking the rules. In fact, some party promoters faced the full fury of the law recently after realizing they were still in breach despite having a permit. More in their support.
It's been a few days since the reopening of the entertainment sector, but it has not been smooth sailing as some promoters had their events turned off by the police. Head of the Constabulary Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephen Lindsay, says a vast majority of promoters did not understand the scope of the permit.
They are supposed to apply to their local municipality for the permit, the event permit. They are to apply to the police commanding officer for the parish for the permit under the Noise Abatement Act if you intend to use any sound. So persons were not so sure how that should happen. There's another set of events that they are required to apply for a permit from the Office of Disaster Preparedness, which those are for bigger events.
It has now raised questions regarding the correct procedures that organizers should follow.
Jamaica Constabulary Force commanders will only grant a permit if the other entities grant that permit. So our permit is contingent on the other local authorities.
And while promoters have been reeling from a drought of events, they still face the possibility of having their request for permit denied. There's also the question about whether the police will be able to manage the number of events set to hit the calendars in the coming days. And again, how the police might respond to that could also impact promoters.
You're not going to grant 10 parties in the same area knowing very well you're not going to be able to police them. Usually you find that where you have incidents of violence in a particular space, the police will say, based on the violence and the likelihood of persons attending that event being put at risk, then they may have to reconsider another date or another location or something else where you may not get a permit in an environment like that.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. Criticisms this afternoon for two of the island's main utility companies, the National Water Commission (NWC) and the Jamaica Public Service Company (JPS), came under fire from councillors at the latest Westmoreland Municipal Corporation meeting. Sandy Williams reports.
I have a dream that water will be back 100% in Little London and surrounding.
And according to Councillor for the Little London Division, Ian Miles, that's just a dream. Mr. Miles says there has been no piped water in his division nor surrounding divisions for a month now.
When it rains, we don't have water. When there's a drought, we don't have water. Then when you have water. Such a water. We are in a pandemic where cleanliness is the order of the day. And domestic purposes are put on hold.
He believes water shortage is not the root of the problem.
Jamaica can export water to the entire world, that's the water. So it has to be a harnessing problem and more so a distribution. And this is a serious problem.
The National Water Commission, NWC, had reported that its Bulstrode treatment plant, which serves Little London and surrounding communities, is operating at 100% of its capacity following a recent upgrade to the facility.
If it is back at 100%, we are in serious problem. Because nowhere in Little London, found somewhere out here not in, because I'm sure that friendship don't have any water now. And if it's at 100% and the communities are not getting any water, then God forbid, there's going to become a serious disaster.
As for the Jamaica Public Service Company, it has also received its fair share of criticisms. As it is now, the JPS has not assigned a parish manager for Westmoreland, and due to a paradigm shift caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the agency has closed its Savlamar outlet, urging citizens to utilize its online platforms.
Recently, a motor vehicle crashed into one of the light pole number on the main road, at the main road. The road was blocked for a day with live electricity. On the road. I wouldn't call it. I don't call. And so we need I will aware it's somewhat dangerous for personnel, but they were not in dangerous for units. So they were undergoing to ensure that several other areas of call. When I become turned up, the contractor responded to clear the roadway. And also, I am actually a part of the disaster group, so I will actually communicate that there. I also share again my contact with the councillors.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
With concerns about an increase in dengue cases, the Ministry of Health is now participating in a pilot looking at the use of the sterilized insect technique SIT. The ministry says it is hoping that the technique will help reduce the Aedes aegypti mosquito population. Shamila Pullen reports.
After the rain comes not only the sun, but mosquito breeding sites become rampant. With the ever-present threat of mosquito-borne diseases, the National Entomology Lab is embarking on a new experiment.
Right now we have some Aedes aegypti mosquito larvae in these trays that we would normally feed them cat food. In these trays we would have approximately 3,000 eggs in these trays, so we would have 3,000 larvae. And in those trays right over here, we would have a maximum capacity of 20,000 larvae per tray.
It is hoped the mosquito insectary will help reduce the breeding of the insects. The pilot program is a collaboration between the Ministry of Health and the University of the West Indies. Professor Charles Grant is the Director General of the International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences at the UWI.
The idea is that Mrs. Huntley-Jones will be producing male larvae that we would then use irradiation to sterilize and then release them into the environment. They will mate with fertile females, but nothing will come of the eggs. So this way there is no genetic information passed along down the line. There's simply the eggs will not be fertile, will not be fertilized. And by doing so, we'll hopefully make a serious dent in the population.
Medical entomologist Shireen Huntley-Jones says the project was delayed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, this has provided the team with extra time to perfect their rearing procedures and maximize on the egg production and colony maintenance.
Our part is the secondary part. The primary part is that of the householder, that we are partnering with the household and dealing with dengue and the control of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. So while the ministry is doing our part, we are expecting the householders to again be vigilant and be looking for those breeding sites. If they don't do what they have to do, what we have to do is going to fail.
Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
The tourism sector is expected to get a further boost with changes to the Casino Gaming Act passed in the Senate. The adjustments will see the relaxing of some requirements and the implementation of stronger ones.
The Casino Gaming Act was passed over 10 years ago, but has not been used as no casino has been created in Jamaica. But Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Kamina Johnson-Smith, says considering the COVID impact on tourism and the economy, amendments are now needed to boost the sectors. Among the amendments, reducing the stipulated 2,000 new rooms requirement to 1,000, including 500 luxury rooms.
These luxury hotel rooms, Mr. President, are to meet size specifications and minimum construction costs as may be prescribed by the Minister. And I'd like to emphasize the requirement for superior services, which will require more training for higher level services and therefore not only more jobs, but better jobs.
The minimum construction cost and the design stipulations for these new hotel facilities are to be determined by the Finance Ministry, which will be overseeing the approval process. Senator Don Webby says at least 4 investors are already asking about the amendments.
2 of the 4 are brand new investors to Jamaica. So this is new capital, Senator Gale, coming in.
But that raised questions from the opposition. Senator Janice Allen suggested that the amendments were limited in light of the objectives.
To come to this point with amendments that seem to only suit a few, and maybe in particular one that is under construction right now, is rather questionable. We should also we must look at the entire act. In fact, a part of the act speaks right now to only having 1 IRD per resort area. And the Montego Bay Resort area, which really stretches from Trelawney to Hanover, is therefore being suggested should only have 1 IRD. Now, if we are looking to open up and diversify and get greater benefits from the industry, maybe now is the time to review.
The social cost of casino gambling was also raised, with Senator Damian Crawford listing domestic violence and gambling addiction among several social ills.
Regarding the matter of there only being 1 resort per geographic area that's defined, and again, that policy has not changed. Jamaica would not seek to promote a proliferation of casinos in Jamaica. There would be limited existence of casinos. There would be exclusivity granted to ensure that the investment would be feasible so that you attract the investment, but also that you're not creating a proliferation because of the very social concerns that have been raised.
The bill was passed without amendment. Herman Green, TVJ News.
And for the latest in the financial world, we go to Cody and Barrett with the Business Minute.
The Business Minute, brought to you by Connex. We design, install, connect, we deliver.
In the world of business, individuals engaged in the use of cryptocurrencies are doing so at their own risk. That warning from the Bank of Jamaica BOJ to the public. The BOJ says cryptocurrencies are digital currencies that are not issued or guaranteed by a central bank or a monetary authority. In addition, cryptocurrencies are not legal tender in Jamaica, and the BOJ does not regulate or supervise these forms of digital currencies. The central bank says there are various risks associated with its use, including high volatility causing significant fluctuation in value, criminal activities, cyber fraud, and settlement risk. Blue Power Group has reported an increase in profits for the 12-month period ended April 2021. Its total revenue amounted to $534 million, an increase of 10% over the $485 million realized in the previous year. The business generated export revenues of $132 million. Profit from operations was $58 million in the year under review, compared to $15 million in the previous year. Total profits before tax for the year amounted to $134 million compared to $73 million in the previous year, showing an improvement of 84%. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
The Business Minute, brought to you by...
Now for a look at what's coming up in this evening's edition of A Ray of Hope, here's Ken Morgan.
Coming up in this evening's edition of A Ray of Hope.
Up until this day, I don't feel a heartbeat. He said to me, Mr. Andrews, you are more than a miracle. Me, one thing I don't understand. How comes you are walking and talking, but you are a dead man?
That's A Ray of Hope, this evening during Primetime News.
Ray of Hope, brought to you by
Now for a look at the top regional and international stories.
Thousands of Cubans have joined the biggest protest for decades against the island's communist government. They marched in cities including the capital, Havana, shouting "Down with the dictatorship." Cubans have been angered by the collapse of the economy, as well as by restrictions on civil liberties and the authorities' handling of the pandemic. Last year, Cuba's largely state-controlled economy shrank by 11%, its worst decline in almost 3 decades. It was hit hard by the pandemic and U.S. sanctions. And on the international scene, in South Africa, unrest is spreading days after former President Jacob Zuma began serving a 15-month prison sentence. The South African army has deployed troops to help control the violence that included lots of looting. Police say at least 6 people have been killed and more than 200 arrested in relation to the protests. And that's it for your international roundup. I'm Shamela Pullen.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, Renardo Brown will have the midday sports.
For your midday sports, I'm Renardo Brown. After weeks of preparation, the Reggae Boyz will commence action in the CONCACAF Gold Cup this afternoon at 5:30 when they face Suriname in their Group C opener. With some of the players joining camp late, 22 of the 23-man squad have been training in Florida for over a week, and head coach Theodore Whitmore is hoping his charges will be ready. It's the first time that Suriname have advanced at this stage of the CONCACAF tournament, and while not taking them lightly, Whitmore is focused on the job at hand.
I think we are comfortable with what we're doing, with what we have achieved so far, and we're looking for the greatest to happen in this tournament. The whole preparation for this tournament started, against Suriname. For us to reach the final, we have to do well. We think we have the guys to go out there and perform. We want to leave nothing to chance, so we're just here to prepare and give up our best at all times.
Costa Rica will play Guadeloupe in the other group encounter at 8 p.m. Meanwhile, 6-time Gold Cup winners, the United States, opened Group B of the tournament with a 1-0 victory over Haiti in Kansas City on Sunday. In the other Group B encounter, Canada recorded a come-from-behind 4-1 victory over Martinique. In Group A, El Salvador blanked Guatemala 2-0. Back locally now, as Humble Lion and Arnett Gardens will go in search of their first point of the 2020-2021 Jamaica Premier League season when the two meet at the Stadium East field today at 3:30. Humble Lion are at the foot of the table following defeats to Cavalier and Mount Pleasant in their opening 2 games. Arnett, in the meantime, lost their only game of the season 1-0 to Tivoli Gardens. Now on Sunday, Dumbo Holden recorded the only victory after clipping Cavalier 1-0 through a 5th-minute strike from defender Andre Dice. In the other encounter, Waterhouse and Veer United remained unbeaten following their 0-0 draw. Now to cricket, as West Indies will look to take an unbeatable 3-0 lead in their 5-match T20 International Series against Australia when the team square off in Game 3 today at the Darren Sammy Stadium in St. Lucia. So far, the Caribbean bowlers have managed to pick up all 20 wickets for Australia over the opening 2 games of the series, with victory margins of 18 and 56 runs respectively. Victory today will mark the second successive T20 International Series win for the West Indies against Australia and would mean the Caribbean side has not lost a series to the Aussies since 2010. Today's game bowls off at 6:30 Jamaica time. Pakistan women were bowled out for 182 against West Indies women inside 49 overs in the 3rd one-day international in Antigua that's ongoing. Jamaican Chanel Henry and vice-captain Anissa Mohammed took 3 wickets each for the Caribbean side. Amima Sahel top scored for the visitors with 62. A victory for the Caribbean side will help them secure the series with 2 games to spare. Now, earlier in the tour, the West Indies women, they won the T20 series 3-0. And that's it for your midday sports report. I'm Renardo Brown. Giovanni, it's back to you.
Thanks so much, Renardo. And a good note on which to end, West Indies cricket doing well, both the men and the women. And that's the midday news. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, the sports and the production teams, have a good afternoon.